China has the largest electric vehicle market in the world, and they export their vehicles throughout the globe. A lot of people are predicting that China one day will dominate the global EV market, and a lot of signs have been pointing towards them being able to do that. A lot of their vehicles are very advanced, far more advanced than we get here in the West, and they're also notably cheaper as well. But some people are now saying that the EV market in China is imploding. Is the bubble bursting over in the PRC? We've seen this with their economy. We've seen this with other industries over there, such as housing. But what's happening to the auto market? What's happening to the electric vehicle market over in China? Let's have a look. The price of used electric vehicles is something we've been speaking about a lot here in the West. Indeed, it's markedly cheaper to buy a used electric vehicle than their petrol or diesel powered equivalents. But in China, you can actually buy a new electric vehicle for the price of a used one. Let me explain why. Because China is so desperate to set these targets for their EV manufacturers, and if these manufacturers don't hit their targets, whether they are new cars, whether they are used cars, then they get heavily punished by the PRC. Of course, the state and companies are intertwined in China. So the state very much has a vested interest in making sure that their electric vehicle companies are hitting the targets that they are meant to. So to help hit those targets, a lot of companies actually sell used electric vehicles that are in reality completely new. Of course, that's great when it comes to sales targets, but when it comes to revenue, it severely hurts them. They're effectively taking a loss on a lot of these vehicles. Because electric vehicles are so cheap in China anyway, can you imagine how much a used one would be? And again, in reality, it's new, it's brand new. And all of this means that the normal market order, the normal capitalist market that should be prospering over there is not quite hitting the revenue streams that it should be. And like a lot of things over in China, the effect of state ownership, the oversight of the state itself, a nanny state, if you will, in this regard when it comes to EVs, is severely hurting them. And something else that's hurting them as well is tariffs. Obviously, a lot of countries don't want to have China dominating the EV market because eventually, by their own admission, a lot of these countries, all the sales of new cars in the near future, 2035, 2040, whenever it's going to be, will be electric vehicles. So if China owns that, they own the car market. Maybe not now, but in the future. But over in China, like I said, a lot of these companies are struggling. In fact, a lot of economists have termed this an involution instead of evolution, involution, which basically means failing on oneself, regressing. And a lot of the funding that was being pumped into these Chinese companies as well, that has all gone away too. The Center for Strategic and International Studies estimated that the Chinese government pumped around 230 billion US dollars into the EV sector between 2009 and 2023. But that funding hasn't been maintained, so the EV companies are having to try and foot the bill themselves now. Which for now they're managing to do, but what if it downturns? What if there's issues when it comes to electric vehicles over in China? It's very much a house of cards that could fall down. If you take automakers in the West, Japan, if you take automakers in the West, in Europe and the United States, all of them, with the exception of the likes of Tesla and Rivian, who are EV only, most of the established players have at least some hybrids, some petrol-powered and some diesel-powered vehicles that they can fall back on. China, though, is pretty much exclusively electric, so if EVs fail, the Chinese automotive sector fails as well. And the amount of companies over in China too. I mean, there's 11 main manufacturers in China when it comes to making EVs, and a lot of them you've probably not even heard of or not even known they did vehicles. Such as Xiaomi, they're more known for mobile phones, but they make cars as well. And because the market is so crowded, they are heavily competing against each other. So inevitably, they all kind of lose out to an extent. Just take NIO, for example. No, not the guy from The Matrix. NIO, N-I-O. I'd never heard of them before personally. They don't sell cars outside of China, but they were formed in 2020. However, 5 years on in 2025, they're currently down around 1.6 billion US dollars in terms of their revenue for the company. So they are really struggling. And given worries about their population at the moment in terms of their demographics, that's a big worry for China. They're going to have so many old people, not enough young people to try and balance the books. A lot of people are predicting that China's economy is going to crash within the next 20 years. Just look at Japan, for example. They were basically in a recession for about 30 years. They were tipped by a lot of economists in the 1980s and 1990s to dominate the world, become the new global superpower ahead of the United States. However, that just didn't happen. Their growth slowed and even regressed. Now, I believe they have actually got out of this slump now, but their population has decreased. They've got so many elderly people and not enough young people to try and support them. It's a big problem. China could be in the same boat in the next few decades, and EVs are just scratching the surface of it. But that's what we cover here on the channel at the end of the day, guys. But yeah, a little window into China when it comes to its EVs. Like I said, it's a house of cards. It's a bubble that is well and truly on the verge of bursting right now. But what is the effect of it going to be? Will China dominate the EV market, or will they taper off before then, and will the West eventually be able to surpass them? My money's on Japan. Japan could well overtake China when it comes to this one day. They know how to make good cars, and if they go all in on EVs, which they haven't done, they don't like EVs for the most part in Japan, but eventually, if they do that, things could very much change. But I want to hear what you have to say in the comments below, guys. Like, share, comment, subscribe as always. Have a fantastic day wherever you're on the world today, and we'll see you very soon.